Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome to Food Chess. Thanks for clicking view. If you haven't done so already, kindly subscribe to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button below. Comments, likes, very much appreciated. Like I mentioned in one of my past posts regarding some of the revolutions going on in West Africa, especially when it comes to the Sahel Alliance, which is Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. However, Mali is taking things a little bit further by eradicating any influence of its colonial times in the fabric of society. So basically what the Malian government, not the Nigerian musician, but the government of Mali, what they have done recently is that they have changed some of the street names, especially within the capital city of Bamako. They've changed the street names to reflect nationalists, people who actually did something great for the country, and taking away French colonial names. So if you don't know this, Mali was a French colony during the colonial times. So most of the street signs and things were named after French people. French names on streets in Africa. Very weird. I find it ridiculous, right? So very interesting thing that the government of Mali is doing. I applaud them for doing that. But when I heard about this, my mind just took me to one of my favorite Southern African countries. Yeah, you guessed right. Namibia. Namibia should come. The government of Namibia, they need to call Mali immediately and say, hey, what gave you guys the confidence to do this? Why are you guys doing this? Because we need to do the same thing as well. Yes, Namibia needs to do the same thing as well. If you go to Namibia, it's like you're in German South Africa. Yeah, German South Africa. Well, if you don't know about the colonialism that happened in Namibia, let me just give you a nutshell, a brief about the heavy and the type of colonialism that went on in Namibia. Now, Namibia was colonized by Germany. Now, Germany didn't have too much colonialism going on in Africa during that time. It was mostly like the English and the French. But when Germany decided to do something, they really put their head down, their hands down, their feet down, and really dealt with the people of Namibia. Now, colonial era in Namibia lasted from 1884, I believe, to 1915. And during that time, Namibia was called German Southwest Africa. The colonialism in Namibia by the Germans, it's known as one of the horrendous types of colonialism that happened in Africa. This is because they dealt with the people of Namibia. Now, their focus was on the tribes of Nama and Herero. Basically, because these tribes, they didn't want to give up their land. Of course, Germany found diamonds over there, so they wanted the diamonds. Just like every other European country, they wanted to come and leech and pest off Africa and leave them high and dry. And that was one of the tactics of the Germans, to leave the Namibian people dry in the desert. So one of the brutal tactics of Germany during this colonial era was that they had a Martian tactics, whereby they took the people into the desert, left them there without food or water, and forbade them from coming back into arable land, and they stayed there, dried up, and died. That was one of their ways of getting rid of the indigenous people. Another thing they did was, of course, starvation, killings. They also had concentration camps where they exterminated people through various means. Of course, the soldiers did horrendous things to women. And when the women gave birth to children as a result of the horrendous things they did to the women, the children were experimented on, all part of the whole eugenics thing about biracial, and the Germans were seen as superior to them. So they experimented with those kids, and various things were happening to them. Especially there was a doctor by the name of Eugene Fischer, who was the main guy who was doing all this experiment in a place called the Auschwitz-Birkenau camp. So Germany did a toll on Namibians. It was horrendous. If you read about the colonialism, it's known as the first genocide in the 20th century, because they took out about 80% of the population about 60,000 to 100,000 people of Herero and Nama were taken out. They were killed. Now, up until recently, within 1990, in the 1990s, 1991 or so, the Herero people asked the Namibian government to solicit for, the remains or the bodies or the people who died, for them to be recognized in Namibia. And the German government refused. Again, the Namibian government refused because they were anxious to maintain good relations with the former German colonizers who refused to recognize the site. So the government of Namibia were anxious to do this for their people because they were afraid. In the 90s, they are still afraid of their colonizers. Again, more lately in 2018, of the German people, Germany finally gave to Namibia back some of the remains, the body remains, because there were scores. They experimented on humans, so there were scores we found in the Kalahari Desert. I think Germany took away some things which they returned recently. But up to today, Germany has not apologized for the horrendous thing they did to the Namibian people. Which is sad, but which is the history of Namibia. One of the things I always ask myself, I hope that these things are being taught in schools in Namibia and also in Africa as a whole. I think this thing to the Namibian government is that, why is there so much of Germany in Namibia? I've been to Namibia before. I love the country. But once you enter the capital city of Namibia, if you go to Swakopmund, go to Windhoek, everything is German. The street signs, like, I can't even pronounce most of them. Like, you see Dr. Schweinstein, like, it's all Schweinstein, it's all German. Yes, German street names in Africa is weird, but that's the reality of the situation. If you go to Swakopmund, most restaurants are German names. They're German restaurants by German people. Employees are German. I've eaten in these places, and I understand. They look at you weird. I'm like, well, you're in Africa, but still, it's like someone is in Munich. By the way, I did a road trip from Zambia to Namibia, and I was stopped by a police officer in Namibia. And the police officer asked us where we were going to. We said we were going to Windhoek, and he said it is not pronounced Windhoek, it is Vrindhoek. I was like, okay, African German, thank you for correcting my vocabulary. It's Vrindhoek. So it's weird to me why the government of Namibia still insists on having traces of a brutal past within the fabric of their society. I hope that one day the Namibian government will do just like Mali is doing to make sure that it cleanses the psyche of its people by eradicating all these traces of horrendous times in the country, starting with simple things as street signs and renaming them. I'm sure there were Namibian heroes, Namibian revolutionaries, Namibian people who died for the cause, who died for freedom, who should be celebrated. But they are not. Rather, Namibia still celebrates those who killed, confiscated, starved, and did horrendous things to women and children. Why, Namibia? Why? We need answers. And if you're Namibian and you have answers, please let us know, because I just visited and I was just surprised to see such a thing. I've gone there twice. I just don't understand why. And this is a beautiful country. I don't understand why everything is so German. Like I'm in Cologne or Munich. But no, I'm in Southern Africa.